Hi everybody and welcome to Beyond Politics. Hope everyone had a wonderful long weekend. Now we're back with normal videos and we hope that we get you to think about the importance of freedom no matter what is happening in government and the rest of the world, because I think freedom is always last on the agenda, if it's even on the agenda when it comes to leaders making decisions for us. And a hot topic this week is obviously VAT that's been scrapped, and some people are trying to take credit for the scrapping of the VAT hike. But one has to look a little deeper at what's actually happening in the government and how we are still going to suffer, even though we might not be paying 15 or 15.5% VAT. There are still hectic ramifications that can affect all of our lives, and we'll be diving into that today.
And one thing that is important to understand is that on Beyond Politics, our focus is on freedom. And a lot of people will actually relinquish their freedoms for security, safety, etc. And one of the things that government's supposed to do is to make sure that we are safe, that we are secure, that there aren't gangs running around controlling neighborhoods and blackmailing people, kidnapping people and all the rest, that there aren't gangs running around ambushing cash in transit vans, etc. These things shouldn't happen, that there aren't abuses against women and the vulnerable, animals, etc. That these things are somehow looked after, and we pay tax money, and VAT is a part of that, to give government the funds to do that. And a true test of a democracy, as I've said before, is does the government deliver on these things? And if they don't deliver on those things through the VAT or the tax or whatever that they get, pay as you earn, then it's not a democracy. So you can judge whether we're a democracy or not based on that. And Treasury has scrapped the controversial VAT hike. And as Lauren says, a lot of people have claimed credit for this. And the African National Congress is saying, we'll give you a link to the article, that this has nothing to do with court cases or non-elected parties or anything like that, that it's a parliamentary process that has made this decision. And there's a 75 billion rand shortfall now.
So I honestly was surprised that the VAT was scrapped. And reading about the VAT scrap made me wonder if and for how long government has been consulting AI tools such as ChatGPT to make government decisions, because you need to look at the evolution of societies and civilizations across the centuries. And it's interesting that we've reached a point we can't deny the fact that we are a global world with global trade. We are global citizens. We use streaming services and buy products from all over the world. And we've definitely moved into a phase we've never been in before in the history of the human race. And that's interesting to take into account because we've reached populations in nations where it's hard to truly understand what the will of the people is. So it seems natural and almost instinctive for government to perhaps use AI tools to make decisions for them. I'm not saying that that's what they did, but it definitely caused me to pause and wonder, could the government be leaning on AI to actually make decisions? And then there are the obviously moral implications of governments using AI tools, and to what point does government just become a human face for a digital machine making decisions behind the scenes, and who's programming that and who's actually pulling the strings? And just on that, how far in the future do you think is the question I want to pose? Put it in the comments. When you're planning for your life, are you thinking in 5 years, in 10 years? Are you thinking in 20 years? Or are you thinking in the span of your lifespan or your children's lifespans? Because those who really pull the strings in the world look at centuries. Klaus Schwab, the author, doesn't matter if he's not the World Economic Forum leader anymore, he's the author of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And the concepts of a digitized world started many, many years before he came up with the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And we can either go along with it, or we can build something completely new that serves humanity the way it should. And what has this got to do with the VAT hike? Well, the GNU, for me, is the first testing ground, stepping into a fourth industrial world political landscape. And it's not one that I favor at all. And I'll work every day to change how the trajectory South Africa is on right now. And with this VAT hike, let's get into it, because it has implications. While we're thinking in terms of 5 and 10 years, there are people that are working century-old plans. And all it takes is for us to have a little bit more vision, a little bit of drive, work together and create a brand new paradigm in which we can live.
Well, this paradigm is for all governments to cease to function properly and completely fall away, and for there to be a global government. So if you look at the end goal, then you will understand how things are falling into place now. That the government needs to collapse, that they need to run out of money, because they need to find the 75 billion rand from somewhere. And if they're not going to get it in VAT hikes, what they've done now is cancelled increases they were going to give poorer people and many other things. And whether you agree with that or not, the money has to come from somewhere. And certain things they cannot deliver on now. But the one thing they have not done is downscale the size of government. And at the end of the day, they're going to be forced to do that, because that's the bottom line. And as you say and speak about artificial intelligence, that will start filling the gaps. And this is the point.
And some people might really celebrate that. I'd
Absolutely.
love to know in the comments what you think about it. I understand with such weak men and women at the helm in government, one would rather lean on a digitized logic, machine decision, instead of a weak human decision. I can totally understand that. But one thing we need to understand is the context in which the systems we live in are built. They were built to fail, to bring about where we are right now, the brink of implementing the fourth industrial revolution everywhere. Already, Mediclinic is talking about freezing the HR recruitment process and implementing AI technology to quicken and make efficient all their internal processes.
Anton Rupert's Mediclinic.
Indeed.
And the thing is, people like him will be at the forefront of implementing technology like this. And even if you're in favor of that, and I can tell you that AI will give you some of the best answers that you can find on the internet. Just last night, I was looking at the electricity rates in the Hanta municipality and how that electricity is structured. And only AI, the AI answer, could give me the fact that the rates on electricity in the Hanta municipality is the opposite to most others, where the more you buy, the cheaper it becomes, where in other municipalities it's opposite to that because of the large farmers, etc. Only AI could give me that answer. None of the documents could.
Absolutely. Because of its specific function, but when it takes the place of the human input, that's when it becomes problematic.
100%.
But let's get into this VAT.
It makes elections pointless, doesn't it?
Yeah, we won't even talk about the e-voting proposal.
But you need to talk about the e-voting proposal because
I mean, that's something I know has been coming for a long time. We'll dedicate a video to it. Videos on e-voting doesn't do well. People aren't interested in elections, but I urge you to be interested in elections because it might be the last chance we have. 2029 might be the last chance we have, and your participation, not lack of participation, can make or break this country. Anyway, that's a side note. VAT is not being increased, yay. But now you'd think a normal, logical person who has experience in life, earn a salary, or you're part of a business, you kind of understand how the economy works. You think, okay, if the government's not going to increase VAT, it needs to make money somewhere. So the most logical answer most of us would probably come up with is, well, let's cut the staff. Let's cut salaries in government, not increase salaries.
That's what they expect businesses to do. Courts will even make rulings like that. And say that you go through a process where you need to cut staff and you will be told to do that. Government?
So what it looks like is that service delivery is actually going to be suffering. And that's the problem. Government has been awful at service delivery since its inception. And unfortunately, with all the revenue that government gets, they could be more efficient with what they get in the current system with the current parties in power, but they're not. And unfortunately, what's happening now is we're going to have a situation where the government and all parties involved are going to be, how do we keep the status quo comfortable for us? And how do we make the 75 billion rand shortfall work? What's going to happen?
Well, we're going to suffer at the end of the day.
We already have not enough money for infrastructure, not enough money for schools or teachers. Our hospitals are awful. We have NHI, which is going to be an enormous tax burden on citizens. So this could be the beginning of the financial end of governments. They've run out of money a long time ago, but now this is going to be
in
the
fact,
last
the South
straw.
African government, based on what I've said before when I started this channel, would be one of the first targeted governments and the big experiment in Africa to collapse in the world completely collapse and to be transformed into something new. And that is why we need to make a stand here and look at what do we want and what are we willing to do to put that in place. And that is why Lawrence come up with plans outside of just Beyond Politics to actually do just that. And people need to start looking at that, looking at those options in the big scheme of things, looking at the world at large, how South Africa fits into that picture, and then make decisions. Are you going to be a part of the solution? And what side of history will you be on? The one that relinquishes all your freedoms? And I've said before, many people will beg to give up their freedom to get the things that they want, that they've become so used to government giving to them freely.
Mm-hmm. We're on our own, people. We should expect nothing from government.
100%.
And same with corporations. I think when we're living in an area now where there's no massive like chain stores and corporations, and I'd imagine how the community generally would just welcome it because it's job creation. But that job creation is minimum wage and awful working conditions, and it completely ruins the soul of the community that you're in. But anyway, here we go. Maintaining VAT at 15% will create a significant shortfall in government finances. By not increasing VAT, estimated revenue will fall short around 75 billion over the medium term. To address this, Finance Minister Enoch has written to the Speaker of National Assembly to withdraw the Appropriation Bill and Division of Revenue Bill. Treasury explained that this was necessary in order to propose expenditure adjustments to cover the shortfall in revenue. Parliament will now be asked to revise spending plans in a manner that ensures that the loss of revenue does not harm South Africa's fiscal sustainability.
That's fiscal sustainability, not our sustainability, the citizens' sustainability, no. The government's sustainability.
Treasury also confirmed that the support measures initially planned for low-income households, such as increased grants or other relief, will now be withdrawn. So we're going to be sitting with a lot of suffering and unhappy people, understandably.
The original VAT increase had been intended to raise funds for frontline services such as health and education. You spoke about schools earlier. So there goes that idea down the toilet. Not reducing the size of government so that we have more money. We have more than enough money. Okay, that's the first thing I need to say.
We just don't have people in government that know how to work with money.
No, not at all. And this is the problem.
Never mind the tendering process, which I like to call the tenderization process.
And the debt and the interest on the debt repayments, etc.
And just bad economic decisions that affect our entire economy.
Half of all tax raised goes to government salaries. Let's just lay that out to begin with. Okay. That doesn't happen in Europe, in the US, or any of these places. It's utter insanity that half of the tax money raised goes to government. It's crazy. And this is not politicians in parties, elected people. They earn a fraction of the amount of tax that we raise in this country.
Government administration,
Correct.
all the national departments, all the provincial departments, all the local
I call
departments.
it catered job creation because that's basically what it's become. And that is not efficient. When you're looking after bankies for booties or family members or friends or people that look after your interests, especially business interests and tenders and so on, it doesn't work. And this happens in all provinces. It doesn't matter which party governs, this happens everywhere. And I think it's very important. We haven't mentioned a party's name yet because we don't have to. Where parties govern, it doesn't matter who they are, these things happen. Nepotism takes place. Friends look after each other. There's handouts that take place. And we have seen this firsthand.
Indeed, and that's why the system needs to change. The political system needs to change. The government needs to change in this country. How things are structured and how things are done and how government's administered needs to change. And we need people who understand economic principles and people who are not greedy. It's a tall ask, isn't it?
Well, if you look at someone like Trevor Noah making jokes about the South African government and tenderization, I actually watch him talk about Australia and the things they complain about.
Oh yeah, it's a joke.
And he's saying their people are moaning about people's tickets being upgraded from economy class to business class. No, literally
the Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister got
and the Minister of Transport.
Yes.
He gets his tickets upgraded and the people are up in arms. And he says in South Africa, an entire airport gets stolen, basically. I know might be an exaggeration to a degree, but when a whole bunch of planes of foreign entities come and land at a military installation, then you know that airport has been couped for a day. Or if you look at what happens to the fuel that's being supplied to airports and who gets attenders, etc., it is an absolute joke. And the Eskom fuel that goes to the gas-fired power stations, we can carry on and on.
Yes, never mind America's interest in our minerals. That's the topic.
Our rare earth minerals, and we will talk about that. I definitely want to shape people's understanding what's actually happening and why America has this massive interest in South Africa. It's not because they're all powerful or all strong. It's because they are heavily dependent, especially the military, on foreign countries and rare earth minerals. But we will have a specific discussion on that.
I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. We've asked quite a bit for your input. We look forward to reading what you have to say. And just remember that behind every news article is a far deeper ramifications. We have the VAT increase that's not going to happen. That's going to definitely impact service delivery, which many areas across South Africa cannot afford right now. Actually, nowhere in South Africa. I mean, if you look at the metros, they are falling apart. They need infrastructure urgently. We need schools urgently because most people can't afford private schooling and there's not enough teachers and all the rest. Hospitals are a nightmare. The general nuts and bolts machinery that we need from governments is just not happening. And now it's under attack more than ever because it'll be a huge surprise. And maybe I will be surprised, but it'll be a huge surprise if government actually cuts its own size so that this economy can get going, so that the demand on the taxpayer is a little less, so we can breathe. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I don't think in the current governance system that it's possible. So governance system change needs to be the starting point. And on this channel, we've spoken at length about this. And I'm sure many of you might have questions about that in future. But we will bring out videos where I'm sure you will explain more the ideas that you have around how we can actually change our governance system and upgrade and improve our constitution to one where we won't be stuck in this mess that we're in right now. And where the citizens need to get involved because that's what you need for a democracy.